I would love to finish.
Finish.
He ain't making the money you are. You sitting there interviewing these black kids that are fucking killing each other and y'all monetizing it. That's not cool. I don't give a fuck what they talking about in they songs. Y'all are turning a profit off of this black trauma of them killing each other. Yeah, they the ones doing the killing because they young and they dumb and they don't fucking know no better. We 45 and 46 years old and we know better because these are our nephews. So they not your nephews, and that's why you don't see the Kevin Samuels shit in the same light that we see it, because you're a white dude and you don't understand what he is. Except Kevin Samuels was causing a black
drill rappers aren't worthy of being interviewed.
I'm not, bruh. You're not gonna spin my words. I'm sharp.
I mean, that's what I'm taking from what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Welcome to another episode of the J Lex Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to the content as I try to grow this platform out. I appreciate you rocking with me today. Today's topic, accountability is lacking. We seem to be in a time in society where people will come up with 1,000,001 excuses as to why their lives aren't better, as to why things don't ever work out in their favor, why they can't exercise, why they don't make enough money, why there's just a litany of things that people will say, or, well, actually, I'm going to say that. There's a litany of things that people will not do, but say that this, that, and a third is the reason that they're either not successful, not moving up in the world, etc., etc. And it just seems to me, other than common sense, because that seems to be out the window too, but it just seems to me that there is no accountability for your actions, or for that matter, your inactions. As an example, I hear almost every single day, I watch a bunch of things on YouTube, whether it's Coach Greg Adams, whether it was Kevin Samuels before he passed, some things I watch with O'Shea Duke Jackson. I watch a lot of these videos that they do, or the commentary that they give, and there seems to be little to no accountability for what you do. And this is not just related to women, by the way. I don't want to sound like I'm sitting here hating or anything along those lines. It doesn't mean that much to me. But it seems to me like there isn't enough accountability being taken by the individual or individuals. As an example, we have in the United States, there is a problem with a large contingency of black women who are single mothers. Now, we know not every case is the same. Some women were in abusive relationships, some people were in abusive marriages, and clearly nobody's saying that you need to stay in that. And if you were, please go get the necessary help that you need. From family, from healthcare or mental health professionals, etc. Now, there seems to be this group of people who, despite everything that they do, every poor decision that they make, having a child out of wedlock, not choosing the right partner, because there's no such thing as a soulmate. You do your best to choose the right partner. I knew a gentleman whose wedding that I went to. I should say I know him a little bit. Know him through the wife. Got married within 9 months. She had a couple kids previous to him, and she was perfectly fine until they got married, and then she got abusive, like physically abusive, threatened him with a knife, the whole bit. Needless to say, I don't even think the marriage lasted 6 months. They got divorced. He got out of there relatively unscathed, but emotionally still going through it, but relatively unscathed. The problem is, not with him, but in general, people will pick the wrong partner and in some cases have a child with them. There are red flags that you generally see, but because maybe that person's doing you right in the bedroom or whatever the case might be, you will bypass those and end up having a child with this person or getting married to this person. It might be alcoholism. The person might be abusive, whatever the case might be. And you think you're going to come in and change that person, especially through like sexual means. When the marketplace today, you can get sex from anywhere at any point. It's not like back in the day, like people got married to have sex. That doesn't exist anymore. Watch some of these podcasts. These women are, I mean, they might be monetizing, but these women are just putting it out there. Like, it's just, like, there's nothing off limits, basically. And it was like that back in the day, too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying people always did this. I mean, there's a reason that prostitution is the oldest profession in the world, even before medicine or business or anything else. But it's all out there now. Check Instagram. A lot of those women, you know, they go over to Dubai and these other places. I won't say what they're getting into, but we know. They'll go into things like porn. They'll do other things. The same thing with men. And now, with the internet, everybody knows your business. And then what will end up happening? You'll end up 40 and alone, and you'll blame everybody else, but yourself. People know what you did. They probably watched it. You probably spoke about it. You probably slept with a bunch of people, talked about it, and then when that person says, nah, you know what, I'm good. Then you say, well, you know, men ain't shit or women ain't shit. What about you? I think Cat Williams told a really good joke, a really funny joke back in the day. I'm paraphrasing his joke, respect to him. But he basically talked about how women talked about, you know, men ain't shit and blah, blah, blah. And he basically talked about the fact that, well, maybe you ain't got, how do you say it? Maybe you ain't got, I can't remember the exact, I'm drawing a blank on how he said it now, but he basically talked about how maybe it's you. Maybe it's you and your, you know what, your special region, I'll say. That's the problem. Maybe your, you know what, isn't all it's cracked up to be. And that goes both ways. As I was saying before, we have a large single mother problem in this country. Not solely based on somebody dying or being in an abusive relationship or something along those lines. A lot of y'all are making poor decisions, or you're having children with these individuals who you eventually don't end up with. We see, what's her name? Brittany Renner running all over the place, trying to prove how she's tough and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, she's broke. I don't know PJ Washington. That's not my business. But we got people out here who are not taking responsibility for their actions and then blaming somebody else. When at the end of the day, you're the goddamn problem. Not everybody else is the problem. You're the problem. There's such a lack of accountability in today's society. I've talked about it in previous episodes. There's such a lack of responsibility. You want to blame everybody else. I've talked about the black community before. All people of color want to do is sit there and complain about what happened in yesteryear. We know about slavery. The fact that slavery is still a topic of discussion as nothing more as more than just like a historical thing boggles my mind to this day. Nobody in this day and age, let me rephrase that. Very few people here in the States, if you aren't being immigrated here, have suffered through slavery. It still exists in Africa today. I know that. A bunch of the people who come over the border from like Texas and Arizona, a lot of those people are in the slave trade, or human trafficking, they call it now. They don't call it slavery anymore. It's human trafficking. We know what it is. I remember a couple years ago, I worked in in Fairfield County in Connecticut. I worked in Greenwich. They call it Greenwich because it sounds more proper, but it's Greenwich, Connecticut. Okay. There's a little strip mall when you come off of exit 5 off the 95 in Connecticut on a Sunday. I wasn't at work at the time. It was a Sunday. It was the weekend. Sometime early in the morning, there's a little strip mall. There's like a Chipotle there now. There's a Starbucks. And I think it's a Acme. It used to be A&P, but I think it's an Acme supermarket now, amongst a bunch of other businesses. They were doing an exchange. Something went wrong at the exchange, and a bunch of bats came out, and people started fighting in Greenwich, Connecticut, one of the most affluent places in all of the United States. People brawling. Human trafficking still exists. Slavery still exists Not to the extent that it does in other countries, but it's still here because they're usually immigrating people. We know about all the Jeffrey Epstein and all that other stuff. We know about that stuff too. The child trafficking and all that. Pedo Island. But I hear people of color today who have never been through slavery, who didn't have to go through the civil rights era, who for the most part have it pretty good. I know people grow up poor and I get all that. But continuously and repeatedly blame other people for either the lack of success or whatever the case might be. Plenty of people, most of the people who grow up in the United States come from poverty. Where's your drive? My father, rest his soul, used to always tell me, if you want to be successful in life, you're going to have to lose some sleep. Everybody wants to be comfortable, but doesn't want to work for that comfort. It's always somebody else's fault. I don't care if you're from the bottom. There are people who come from, look, there's poor people here, and then there's poverty in other parts of the world. I've seen poverty in other parts of the world. Here it's pretty decent. For the most part, depending upon the state that you're in, you get Section 8 housing, you can get free lunch. They used to do that back in the day. There's all types of programs. I know things are a little bit different now because they've made a lot of budget cuts, but there are plenty of people who will come from the bottom, who build themselves up into something. So a lot of those guys, women use entertainment as a means to get up. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's plenty of other people who go, who grind, who claw, who see an opportunity and take it. That's what life is at that level. Who humble themselves, who work their asses off, who wake up early, who go to bed late. They're the first one in the office, the last one to leave. And you can come from the same exact neighborhood, have the same exact background, and you have one person who's still in the neighborhood, still on the block, still doing dumb shit, and you have somebody else who might be on Wall Street. And that's just not a New York tri-state area, New York City thing. You can talk about that in the Midwest, you can talk about it down south, you can talk about it out west. If I had to guess the number of people who started out impoverished in this country, whether they were born here or whether they immigrated here, I would probably say it's a 70-30 deal. You have to start somewhere. You have to take some responsibility. And if an opportunity presents itself, you take that opportunity. See, one of the things is I don't have an issue. I know this just from talking to people. Some of the issues some of the older heads have today is that the younger individuals don't seem to want to work. You see, when I was growing up, you had to go and get a job somewhere. You had to work at a fast food restaurant. I started out in the supermarket. You had to work retail. You worked for $5, $6 an hour. And that's not to say those jobs don't need to be filled right now. But you see, the difference is today the young people have so much more information. There are so many other opportunities for them. If they have a cell phone, they can monetize. And if they know how to do it really well, they'll make a lot of money. I've mentioned to you before, I met a young man who's in college. Has 140, probably close to 150,000 followers now up on YouTube. I see what he talks about. He's not talking about anything significant, but he's monetizing because there's an opportunity there. If that existed when I was coming up, I think 1990s when the civilian internet started. I got into it around 96, 97. So by the time 2000 came around, it's not as if you could monetize on YouTube. There was no Facebook or Instagram. So what did you have to do? You had to go and find a job and do something. If these young men and women can monetize and make money off of YouTube and other forms of social media, there's nothing wrong with that. But at least they're taking the initiative. They're learning from past generations. In some of these cases, some of these kids are making more than their parents. That's a different story. Respect to those parents who are going to try to, work with those kids. But when do you step up? When do you stop complaining? When do you start making changes? If you have mental health issues from past relationships, blah, 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 work on yourself. A lot of y'all would say, well, I have past issues in my relationship. You will go and spend thousands of dollars on external things, but you won't fix the internal. As if a pair of shoes or a watch or a car or having an apartment in New York City or some other place, as if those things will all they are a mask for the BS that you're dealing with internally. Work on that first. You want to be in a relationship with somebody, or you hear it all the time, women don't want to submit, or whatever the case might be. They don't even, just put that word aside. They don't even want to be cooperative. But they'll buy hair, they'll buy shoes, nails, everything name brand, all the way up and down, and you're still ugly inside. Might be beautiful outside, but ugly inside. Same thing with guys. You think a car or a watch, I'm a big watch guy, but you think a car or a watch or a haircut or a shape up or a six-pack abs is gonna fix what you're dealing with your mental and your emotional? No. Fix those first. Everything else will follow. If you want more out of this life, and you only get one, some people believe in reincarnation, I get it, but most people are coming back as a fire hydrant that a dog's gonna piss on. You're gonna come back as a redwood tree that gets pulled down by vines. You have to take responsibility for your life. You have to work on the internal. You've got to have the drive. And if you don't have the drive, that's fine, but don't hate on the next person. Don't hate on the next man or woman who worked hard. Some people will kiss ass, I get all that. Some people will talk bad about you, I get all that too. You have to work on you. Worry about you and those that you care about. Because don't nobody care. And this time on this earth goes by quickly. I'm already 40 plus years old. I'll be 42 at the end of the year. You have to have the drive, you got to have the will, you have to be competitive. Nothing is going to be handed to you. I've told you in other episodes, the only thing that the government owes you or society owes you is basic human rights. They don't owe you universal income. They don't owe you health care. That's a nice thing to have, but they don't owe it to you. You're owed nothing. And you will get nothing if you continue to sit there and not take control of your life and beyond that. Stop worrying about the external stuff. That'll come. A car is a car, whether it's a Prius or whether it's an X5. Stop trying to compare yourself to other people. I understand from a competitive standpoint, but you know what? They don't even see you. Truly successful people don't have time for the bullshit. Truly successful people don't give a damn about what you or the rest of yours are doing. People who are successful, people who are working hard, are worried about themselves and their families. And some of them don't even care about that. Some of them are busy doing other things. Stop hating on a Jay-Z or anybody else. Oh, he's a cop, he's this. Guess what? He's worth billions. Follow him. Follow his moves. Don't follow him. Follow the moves that he makes. Guys like Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is from Newark. And now owns 50 brands. Yes, he used entertainment as a means to get there. But guess what? He could have blown through all that money. And he told the story where he did. We got that first mill and just like that, blew right through it. Buying things that meant nothing at the end of the day. That man's owned cars, homes. But you know what he does? He does own 50 brands. That's what matters. Gets to do charitable work, etc. And sometimes in that responsibility and sometimes in that accountability, you've got to let some people go. Not everybody's going to be on the journey with you. Sometimes even your closest people, you got to tell them, you know what, deuces. Doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that they're holding you back from what you could potentially be accomplishing. Because they want you to stay down when you should be moving up. Keep pushing forward. Keep working hard. I'm not saying you got to go to college. I'm not saying you got to do anything like that. But keep pushing forward. Keep working hard. Have a skill. That's more than just asking, yo, let me hold something. Hell, get multiple skills. Because you never know. This internet thing goes down tomorrow. What else can you do besides content create? What other skills do you have? How can you be important to somebody else? Who's in your network? That is your responsibility. If you're an introvert, I understand it. So was I. You know what I did? I took a couple acting classes just to get me out of it. Just so I could talk to people better. Just so I could network properly and not be nervous all the time. Because that's what you're doing when you're networking. You're putting on a character. Or an extension of yourself. As they say in wrestling, it's your gimmick. It might be a little over the top, etc. But now people notice you. Unless you strike, oil, or you win the lottery or something like that, you don't have to do it. Cool, chill. But 99% of people have got to work. 99% of people have got to build. Get out of that comfort zone. And try to do it sooner rather than later. Don't just spend your 20s tricking tricking at the club. I'm not saying you can't have fun. Have a lot of fun. But also stay on your purpose. Once you find that purpose, stay on your purpose. And if you got to drop a couple people, that's life. That's life. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of J-Lex Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to the content. Take care.